weather's bad, obviously. And a big snowstorm is headed in. A big one. That could be challenging. But we do have a storm that goes all the way from Canada to Texas. Have you guys looked at the weather map? You know, a lot of people said that was impossible. And it's just beginning. These are the beginning cycles of some of the more notable changes that we're going to have atmospherically, especially concerning weather, right? Also, it is Friday, right? April 26th, and we're on a 2-day countdown. This is very important, the transference of messages. Again, I suspect it's going to hit probably tomorrow night through Tuesday. And I don't know what the outcome's going to be. So let me help you guys with this, why I said that. You guys know that last week and the week before, Israel was stopped. They were stopped a few times from taking out quite a few things in the Middle East. You guys know that, right? And we're just not talking about a couple missiles, bunker busters. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a coordinated strike from multiple countries, okay? They were stopped a few times, twice. And so this last time, when all this traffic came about, right, that you guys were tracking, that's what you were hearing. That will no doubt start back up again. No doubt, right? Every time there are, you may not know this, but you guys are so close to a change in life you didn't expect, right? You're extremely close. It is only God's graces that more than a few times cooler heads prevailed. But make no mistake, the plan is still in action. Still in action. You know what that means? Hope you guys know what that means. We had a simple delay. That's it. The world had a pause. Also, Macron. You guys do understand that Macron right now, because Germany was weak in its positions, Macron is taking up, by way of strength, militarized forces, plans of action, coordinated efforts with NATO to spearhead some activity with both Russia and in the Middle East. To Macron, the Middle East was a distraction from something major. Yes, I said something major. And China is involved. So I can tell you that now. That means Macron has been empowered, guys. He is the individual right now who is the strength of Europe, right? He's calling many shots and he's proposing some plans. He's gathering one of the largest military elements ever. Hope you guys know that. Macron is gathering one of the largest military elements ever. I won't go into detail with that. It's too early for that. And that's not really out there, but you guys can track that, see it for yourselves. Macron, Mr. Macaroni himself. I say that with no disrespect. Lord forgive me, I probably did. But he is getting a pretty sizable force together. He is a person of action, right? And he also believes in preempting things. Hope you guys know what that means. He also, France is a nuclear nation. You guys know that, right? France is. So he's not bluffing, right? You guys will hear aggressive language coming from him concerning Putin shortly. You're going to hear it. You're going to hear aggressive language coming from him concerning China shortly. You're going to hear it. The Macron character, this guy has taken over the entirety of operations in that region. And so it's a good statistic to say that he will impose the next move. He will. He is very dissatisfied with the job of Europe, right? Specifically Germany. He's very dissatisfied with the Brexit situation. You know, those people that kind of leaped out. He's very dissatisfied with how that whole thing happened. And he is a person of action now. He's been working diligently for a long time, right? A long, long time. And so here he is setting things up. If you guys can be reminded, normally and usually, you always have these individuals that come in and they start changing policies, setting things up, this, that, and the other happens, and then all of a sudden somebody else steps and they sit in that chair of power of which everything is prepared. Keep that in mind, because the USA is doing the exact same thing. Policies have been shifted and changed, and I'm telling you now, it should be no secret to anybody that Biden is not going to last long. So anything of any power move he has enabled a president, right, to actually perform, he will not be the man doing it. He won't. Somebody else is going to step into power of which you don't know what they're predisposed to do. And they're going to exercise all the powers Biden set up. Keep that in mind, because we're really headed for some times that are quite, well, they're not quite going to match up with what the average person would like. They really won't. But keep those things in mind. That means it could get scary. Very scary for a time. But we all know what's coming, right? We all know that a kingdom is being put together. A person is about to come forward. A person who comes from a small people. A person of whom they do not give honor of the kingdom, but he will come in peaceably, right? He'll win everybody over with flatteries. He'll do what his fathers have not done, or his fathers' fathers. He will scatter among them the prey, the spoils, and the riches, right? Even the prince of the covenant is going to be overtaken by this person. That means, you know who the prince is, and it just so happens at the time we're in, we have two individuals. Two. And in my opinion, both are starting to, they seem like they're slowing down as far as cognitive abilities, right? They are. It just seems that way to me. It seems that way. So somebody else will be coming to the table. They will. I mean, I know a lot of people, they don't like that, right? But somebody else will be coming to the table. You know, I thought about it. Somebody said, well, what if Trump wins, right? Right now, as it stands, Trump is more likely to win than anybody else. But suppose he does, right? I can't help but to observe the track record of people and how they're engaged in life. When Trump was president, he went to 5 or 6 different rallies per day, ran the country, had meetings, right? Still jumped on television, did this, that, and the other. He did all that in one day, every single day. This guy was supercharged. These days, he's taking more and more breaks, which means stress starting to get to him, which is totally understandable. It's totally understandable, right? It's a very stressful situation, totally understandable. But it also means it's starting, when it starts to get to you like that, right? It'll begin to show. It'll begin to show, and it can have adverse effects, right? So keep your prayers for all those who are in duress like that, right? I know a lot of you guys think, well, he's a criminal. He deserves what he gets. Let me share this with you. Every single last one of us, we're criminals before Christ forgave us. And without Christ, you're a criminal. Okay? That's what we are, criminals. We're criminals, right? It's just that people know what he did. They don't know what other people did. All of them, but none of them are squeaky clean. They're not. Okay? They're not. Every single last one of them, okay? They're not. Every single last one of them has inappropriately stepped forward in life doing something. They have. It's just that nobody found them out yet. That's all. You keep that in mind, too. That way you're thinking about the seat of the presidency, right? You're thinking about that. If we had a moral meter that we utilized to pick out presidents, we would not have one. We wouldn't. We couldn't pick a president from the selection that we have when it comes to morals. But when it comes to getting the job done, you got to admit, you have to admit, even for those who don't appreciate Trump, I remember nobody liked him when he first came in there. And I had a little statement. He was the only one. He was the only one that made Europe pay up. He was the only one that caused the Middle East to double check every plan they ever had because he called their bluff. He's a businessman, right? He is. He is. And plus, our Father knows exactly what he's doing. According to the people of the land, so will the leader be selected, put in power, and we will be under whatever that leader does. We're going to be under that, right? The selection of a leader depends highly upon you. God's not going to give us what we want. God will select, according to his word, what he said we would have. So remember that too. Remember that. Whatever the people warrant, they will endure. If the people become violent, Lord help them all. Lord help them all. All right, so it's not, I know it's nice to think that somebody is, one sole person is pulling the strings. No, Satan can't do anything he wants to do. God has to allow Satan to do certain things or he can't do anything at all. He can't even exist without the Father's approval. Remember that. He can't. So keep all those things in mind because we're in for it. We're in a place and time we've just not been before. Right? And then, when you know it, the bugs come up, the cicadas. Did you guys hear about that in South Carolina? They were so bad in South Carolina, people were calling 911 on the bugs. You guys did hear about that, right? Those things are loud. And they really came up in volume. It was so loud, people called 911. But they did come up. And when you know it, now we start to have these huge storms that are coming. They're in Colorado mountains, for example, right? Right outside of, a little bit north of Cheyenne, a little bit south of Denver, near that subway. You guys know that subway on NORAD Road. Anyway, a snowstorm is coming. It's going to drop some heavy snows in the mountain, probably hitting close to some record numbers, which is odd. Isn't that odd? But also water, right? Water is going to be quite heavy with this storm that's forming, and it's forming, so it could get a lot worse. Other states have just gone through some sort of tornadic wall. Cold temperatures are coming down from Canada. There's a low-pressure system dominating to the west of the Great Lakes. It will continue to travel on its jet stream trajectory, but it's also going to pick up a lot of moisture in Texas. Lots of moisture. Now, Texas does not need, if they start getting floods again, because they just had some. Anytime anything hits the Gulf, now the Gulf waters are not incredibly hot right now. They're not. So we're kind of saved by that. But it will pick up some of that moisture and dump it into places that already have water. Some places are waterlogged, so it's coming anyway. This is going to become one of those patterns that we'll see over and over and over and over again. Over again, right? This weather is not only going to hit the U.S. Have you guys noticed something? I want to bring your attention to something. No other country gets weather like the USA. Have you guys noticed that? Think about this. Who deals with tornadoes? The most. Who does? Who deals with hurricanes? The most. Who does? Think about it. Who does? You guys don't find that odd? Right? You know, this storm that's coming through now is coming through in a very sensitive area. Very sensitive area. If it does any damage when it's coming through, it could bring us to a complete halt. Do you know that? I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to encourage this storm to go around certain parts of Colorado. I wouldn't be surprised. Right? And we're not talking about NORAD. Forget about NORAD. That's not what we're talking about. Sometimes things are in plain sight. They really are. Anyway, these storms are coming through, and they're going to hit some very sensitive areas. In Texas, likewise, those floods were in very sensitive areas. Right? Some of the storms that are projected to form, very sensitive areas. Right now, the storm line that has active hook clouds and tornadoes in it is on track to pass in very sensitive areas. Now, I find this quite amazing. Myself, I really do. That these storms are causing more damage to the American military machine than anything else. That is very odd. I know for a fact they're going to try and stop it when it comes to Florida. They always do, right? The way you divert a storm is you seed the atmosphere, right? Where the heaviness, if it starts drawing dust, where you have seeded a storm, naturally it's going to be a lot heavier. So it will both push everything else out of the way, and it will drag new developing fronts with it. They often do this to counterbalance really bad storms that are about to hit very sensitive areas. That's how they do it, right? They have sound weapons also that work quite well in the atmosphere, but only momentarily, right? Only momentarily. Some of the weapons, if they were to use them, would cause human beings to have some irreversible effects. Almost immediate death for a lot of people, out of agony for others, right? But it just so happens, these storms are forming and people are starting to hear trumpets again. I forgot to tell you guys that yesterday. The trumpets. And nobody's reporting on that. Nobody's reporting on the trumpets. The loud trumpets people are hearing. Last time it was those noises in the atmosphere. A couple of weeks ago, I told you guys those noises were coming back. Now they're hearing trumpets, specifically trumpets, trumpet blasts. They're specifically hearing those. It has a lot of people on edge spiritually. It does. Lots of people on edge. But those noises are coming back. Somebody says, where? Don't worry. They're going to be all over the globe. All right? Whenever God does something, he does it worldwide, not in some small little place in a closet or in some isolated landmass. He does it worldwide. When the Lord does something, everybody will experience it. Right? Everybody will. Right. When the Lord does something, everybody will experience it. Right? Everybody will. And people are starting to hear those noises again. Did you guys know that in space, there is no noise until something hits atmosphere where sound waves can actually travel, right? Do you guys believe that? In space, there are pockets, very dense pockets sometimes, right? They found this out at CERN in vacuums. They're running a big vacuum system there, and they had to get rid of pockets with vacuum. Something is opposing the vacuum. It is very odd, anomalous behavior. They know what it is now. Same thing happens in space. So, for example, if in space, all of a sudden, our atmosphere was doubled due to one of these anomalies, the deafening sounds that would come from over your head would sing you to your knees. That's how loud it would be in space, naturally, right? That's natural noise from space. I do suspect we're going to have that phenomena in several parts of the earth. I do suspect that. I do. I suspect that big time. But they're coming back. And a lot of people are not going to be in observation mode. Many of you are going to be distracted from tracking what you think is potentially the end. And when I come back from this break, we're going to talk about that. Because hopefully you're not distracted. Hopefully you guys are very focused. Right? No matter what you hear, see, war is coming. It is. We know this. War is coming. We know that. Devastations will follow. We know that. Darkness is rising. We know that. It's been rising for a long time. It's just to the point where it's not gone away yet. And it seems like nobody can get rid of it. We already know that. We know that the nuclear conversation is on the table right now, tonight. know that. We know that. One of those reasons is if somebody were to hit Iran and penetrate some of their deeper facilities they have, that would be a moment, that would be a huge explosion, guys. To penetrate that much earth and to be effective at it does not happen with one projectile. But one projectile will open it up. Others follow to decimate whatever that structure is. If that happens, it will be akin to a small tactical nuke by way of its yield. If that takes place, people will interpret nothing but sheer horror. And because many countries over there, right, there are some nuclear-armed countries over there, they will not hesitate to counter-strike if they get the wrong intel. So it's very important that whomever launches such an offensive, they have to contact everybody over there. They have to somehow let everybody know what they're doing. They have to leak out the plans. They have to have a play-by-play. Some sort of play-by-play that people can track. And if they can track it, so can you. That's at the beginning, not during execution. So they have to give plenty of warning so people can figure out what's happening. Because if they don't, it'll cause massive fears within people who have no idea what just happened. Some of the conventional weapons do look like nuclear explosions. And if you were to see one, you may be convinced it was a nuclear explosion. Some of those weapons can set off those nuclear sensors, right? Some of the older ones. So a country could interpret some sort of nuclear strike. And that too would be bad, right? That too would be bad. So they're going to have to leak it. They're going to have to let everybody know what they're planning. Until either the abort call comes in or committal. And that's going to happen. Probably we're going to see a scenario like that next. I'd say probably a good day spans the next 4 days. Why? Because Israel right now is planning to hit several parts of the Middle East. They're committed to getting rid of Hamas. Hamas said this. Hamas said this, that if they would go back to the lines back in the 60s, right? Those property lines in the 60s, they would have a ceasefire. Agree to a ceasefire for a number of years. That's what they said. Do you think Israel is going back to those 1960s border lines? No. They're not doing that. Not with Benjamin Netanyahu right there. Now, you do have some in Israel that are now saying, you know what they're saying? Listen to me. The only thing stopping that is Benjamin Netanyahu. If anybody else gets in power, there will be a negotiation of the parting of that land from the inside of Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu is the only thing in the way right now. There are other people, right, in Israel right now in leadership. Well, we'll say that will be in leadership. And what they're saying is, land is not, to give up that land, to go back to certain dividing lines is not too heavy of a price. Because some of those people are they're just as sensitive as some of these college kids to Hamas. Their excuse is, or let's just say their pitch is they don't like the death that's incurred from combat. Right? There are innocents dying on both sides. To stop that cycle of death, to give up part of that land, they said, it's worth it. To stop the cycle of killing. They said it was worth it. Now keep in mind, this is Hamas. This is the deal they're making. This deal they're making. So that's something else you can track. Now, in the Bible, what does it say in Joel chapter 3? It said they parted his land. So we know that they will part the land. That's in Joel. In fact, it's in a couple of places where the Lord brings that up again. They parted his land. They parted his land. Now that can mean two things. That can mean right now, with their existing borders, the land could still be parted. There's a possibility of the land of Israel has never been whole. It's always been parted. So it's been parted for a very long time. That's one possibility. The next one is that the new government that will come into power in Israel is going to agree with those adversaries around them to part the land. And according to the book of Daniel, the king of the south and the king of the north sit down and tell lies at one table. That's politics. That's what that means. That's negotiating. That's negotiating, right? Political negotiations. So they'll sit down and make these promises and plans and everything else they're not able to keep. That's why they're called lies. And then they'll go their separate ways. But the prince of the north won't get everything he was promised, right? And he'll have great indignation against the king of the south, the prince of the Holy Covenant. Then that's when he goes out and he'll have intelligence with those that forsake the Holy Covenant. That means somebody, listen to me, that means whoever this person is coming to the forefront is going to have a series of talks with Israel. Then they're going to go back and they're going to gather up other folks who have a list of infractions with Israel. And it seems like this war with Hamas could very well be the doorway as to how they would do it. Because think about this. How many crimes have people in the Middle East, have people said that Israel has committed in this Hamas-Israeli conflict? Lots, right? Right? So if somebody goes out to different countries and they get a big list of grievances saying that Israel is responsible for breaking international law, right? For breaking treaties and everything else due to their conduct in combat. That's in the book of Daniel. That's exactly what they do in the book of Daniel. And they will blame Israel for that, just like they're doing now. Are they not in the UN right now? Right now, they're not in the UN saying that Israel has broken international law. That Israel has done this. Isn't that the same thing you see in the book of Daniel? Because in the book of Daniel, when it says he will have intelligence with them that forsake the Holy Covenant. That's a list of grievances, of charges, saying that blaming Israel for everything. This Hamas war opened the door. I mean, it could very well open the door to this. And we can see this rather quickly. Right? Somebody said Israel is a cup of trembling. In context, know this about a cup of trembling. First, Israel is attacked. First, Israel is overcome. Then when God looks down upon the land after they've been attacked, then they become a cup of trembling. Right? To all who are round about her. So then all those people who came down around Israel, who set their hearts against her, at first, she is not a cup of trembling, right? She's not going to cause them to quiver in their boots. They will attack her and overcome her. But after a designated time, that 40 and 2 months, God himself will fight on behalf of Israel. And at that time, Israel is going to strike fear. That land and it is going to strike fear in the hearts of those who ever thought to come against it. That's when Israel becomes a cup of trembling. That's when it happens. That it happens. So I always throw in the complete part. I know a lot of people, they jump straight to the cup of trembling part. But then if you read the whole thing, A lot of people they'll read the whole thing and say, well, wait a minute. It says Israel's attacked and overcome, and this, that, and the other. I thought it was a cup of trembling. Well, it is after that designated time of 3.5 years, right? 3.5 years, she's going to be trampled underfoot. 3.5 years, she's going to be under siege. 3.5 years. And then after that 3.5 years, anybody who set their hearts against Jerusalem, against Israel, they're going to wish they had never been alive. In fact, the Bible in one part says it'd be better if they'd not been born. Right? That's in context. So one of the persistent things I always talk about is that 3.5 years with Israel. It is the very thing. A lot of people don't like to discuss it. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I have to have the whole truth here. Bad. It's getting bad out there, everybody. It's getting pretty bad out there, especially in these tornadoes. Active tracks are everywhere, it seems. I hope that you guys are paying attention to your local forecasts. And prayers out to those guys who are in the middle of the path of these tornadoes. It truly is an outbreak, and it's going to continue. You know, at this point, it's only God's. Somebody says, we do know Israel started Hamas, no elements in the Middle East, right? Israel has people in it that are not part of Israel. God knows it too. That's why it's in such turmoil. That's why. But I want you to think of the core of things. I did this a few times, analyzing counterparts in the Middle East many years ago. I began to think everything spiritually. And sure enough, true to form, I began to track the spirits. The spirits, same spirits, were hopping from group to group, the exact same spirits. Now, let me give an explanation for this. You ready? Spirits, so that you can know them, say the same thing every single time. No matter who they work through, they have the same statements every single time. Now, hear me on this. That means if you know somebody who's been compromised spiritually a long time ago, and let's say they go out of your life, and somebody else comes into your life to start trouble again, they end up saying the same things that the other person said a long time ago. Neither one of them know each other, right? There are elements within this country and other countries that are just like that. Because who's behind many of these kingdoms? Satan is. Not the Father. Satan is. And so they end up doing the exact same thing no matter what banner they hold up. It's the same fruit they bear. That is key. They continually produce the same fruit over and over again. And just like you guys have known a person who has been a issue in your life, and then they go away, right? You thought you got rid of that person, and you meet somebody else. Soon they're going to hate you because they're going to connect you with them. Soon they're going to break free from this moral cage they say we have put them in, and Christianity has put them in. And if you go on these college campuses, that's what you hear. That's what you're hearing. You're hearing mockers. Go near some of these. I challenge, look, if you live near one of these colleges and you can passively observe and hear, listen to what they're talking about. Just listen to what they're talking about. They're talking about Christianity. They're talking about these rules of the God of Israel. That's what they're talking about. So when I said, why do people hate the Jews? The same reason people hate rats. They hate a rat, but they love a squirrel, and a squirrel is nothing but a fuzzy rat. Those who belong to the living God, they do not hate the Jews. Hate of your fellow man comes from one source, and it did not come from the living God. In a lot of cases, it comes from education of somebody who is an undercover hater of something. It comes from violence and darkness. It is a learned behavior like racism. Now, everybody grows, and some people have to grow beyond what they've been taught in their heritage and the violence they've been a part of already. Some people truly believe that their life is ruined. God bless you guys. The Lord will keep you. Keep each other in prayer. Be sensitive to those who are caught in these storms, please. Please. Do that. God bless and keep all of you always. I'll see you next time right here at the Council.